How did Slack launch their product to their initial users? How about Snowflake, one of the greatest SaaS companies with one of the biggest IPOs? How about ChatGPT? Did they launch on Product Hunt and do a lifetime deal? No. The thing is, these iconic companies, the most successful SaaS companies, the most successful product companies, they don't do this one big bang launch where they hit this giant launch button and then boom, everything just starts to come together. In fact, all the successful companies that are out there follow a very different approach when getting to product market fit, when launching and driving growth. So in this episode, I'm gonna walk you through the wrong way to do launches, and I'm gonna walk you through the 3 principles that you absolutely need to know to do launches the right way. And when you implement these key principles, you will be able to launch your SaaS product and accelerate your path to that next stage of growth. Intro. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Unstoppable. I'm TK, and on this channel, I help SaaS founders like you grow your SaaS businesses faster with an unstoppable strategy. Now, if you're new to this channel, welcome. I drop an episode every single Sunday with actionable strategies and tactics from the trenches on how to grow your SaaS business faster. So be sure to hit the subscribe button and that bell icon. That way you'll get notified every single time I drop an episode with the TK energy. Now, if you're already part of this community, if you're part of my SaaS go-to-market coaching programs, my people, welcome back. It's really awesome to see you over here. When I first got into this game, I was coding, I was trying to quit my day job, I was launching a new SaaS product. I thought the way you launched, the way you got to initial revenues, the way you got to initial scale was a big bang launch. Very quickly, I learned the hard way that that's not how you do launches. The way to get to product market fit, to truly successfully launch a product, you have to take a multi-threaded approach. When you look at the best SaaS companies that are out there, they don't just do a big bang launch, they do a very methodical way to get to product market fit and scale from there. When I talk to founders in the community, in this unstoppable community, I often come across founders that are building their product. And I'll ask them like, okay, cool, like when are you getting to users, when are you getting in front of people? And there's this fear that kicks in. Is the product good enough? Do we have the right features? Do we have the right MVP? And also, if I put it out there, will people steal my product and my idea? All of these fears get them into a trap where they just prolong the launch. They don't get it in front of real users. And eventually the day comes where they do some big bang launch, but it was crickets right after. Or even worse, they got a bunch of people paying attention, but it didn't give them any insights on how to drive predictable and scalable growth. This is where I truly understood the core principles of doing launches the right way. And in this episode, I'm gonna walk you through the wrong way to do launches, which is what I call the linear method, versus the right way to do launches, which is the multi-threaded method. And I'm gonna walk you through the 3 principles you actually need to know to embrace this way of launching and accelerating your path to revenues, to product market fit, and that next stage of growth. So if you're excited to dig in, go ahead and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, and let's dig right into it. So principle number 0, it's 0 because I really wanna set up the chessboard here, is I wanna talk about the difference between a linear launch and a multi-threaded launch, because that is the important distinction that you need to understand that I learned the hard way, and I try to teach as many founders as possible. Now, the linear method this is how it goes. You essentially get an idea. You're like, I really want to build this product, which is awesome. And then you start coding it. And then you say, okay, I'm going to show it to a few people. I'm going to show it to friends and see if they're willing to buy or if they're going to be interested. And then you basically make a decision like, okay, it's ready and I'm going to go launch. And then you expect that there's gonna be a whole bunch of money that comes out of that. Now, the problem here, and I've fallen into the trap myself, so I'm not calling you out or anything, I've seen countless founders fall into this trap, is this big launch date keeps getting prolonged because you'll talk to a few people and they'll tell you, and they come from good intentions, it's like, oh, this is pretty cool, but if you just added this one more feature, then it'd be really awesome, and then I'll totally buy. And so what you do is you go and talk to a bunch of people, and you go back to coding, you talk to a bunch of people, you go back to coding, and eventually you get to a point where you're like, okay, I have an MVP, which is a minimum viable product. And then you get into saying, all right, I'm gonna go list this on Product Hunt. I'm gonna tell everyone about it. I'm gonna post on social about it. And it's gonna be this big bang launch. And after that, we're just gonna make a ton of money and we're gonna go into hypergrowth mode and we're gonna scale. As I described this, you're probably already getting a little bit of a pit in your stomach. In fact, I'm getting a pit in my stomach because objectively, you kind of know this is not the way to do it, even though logically it makes a ton of sense and it's a logical set of steps. This is what I call the linear launch model, where you're doing one thing and then the next thing and then the next thing and then the next thing, and eventually you're gonna get to results. The problem with this is there's an incredible amount of time that you get stuck on just adding more features. This is what I call the one more feature trap. Everyone is guilty of it. I've been guilty of it as well. On top of that, you're asking your friends or you're asking your existing network and you're not really selling. So they're just giving you a bunch of opinions. They might be encouraging you and saying, oh, this is awesome, but they're not really buying. And then eventually you get to a point where you put up the website, and I know the website messaging is gonna be changing because you don't really know what your target market is yet, or you do a launch or you offer a lifetime deal, and maybe some things happen, maybe you make some money, but then you really don't know what you're gonna do after that. You're like, what happens? If I were to put this linear launch method into a chart, it would look something like this. A huge spike and then a drop and then nothing after. Couple of things happen over here. One, you might get a whole bunch of users if you're lucky. Let's just say you get hunted or you list on AppSumo, you get a bunch of lifetime deals. You get a huge number of users, they get into the product, and then they just complain because believe it or not, there's a whole group of people in the internet that just like to buy random tools and then complain and tell you how terrible it is, and now you're stuck with them for life. The worst case, that's like the good case scenario. The worst case scenario is nothing happens. You don't get hunted, no one pays attention, it's crickets, and now you don't really know if you wasted months building the wrong product. This is the problem with a linear launch. This is the problem with a big bang launch. Here's the right way to do this. And as I lay this out, you'll get like this aha moment because it makes a ton of sense, is you take a multi-threaded approach. There's essentially two threads you're doing. The first thread is coding and building. The second thread is closing deals, and otherwise known as GTM. And obviously in this channel, I talk about your go-to-market quite a bit. I'm biased around it. Like, look, I got in this game. I'm an engineer. I love building incredible products. So coding is my favorite. However, the reason I love go-to-market so much is because unless I figure out go-to-market, no one will ever see my product. I learned this the hard way. So a multi-threaded launch model, what it does is it starts on both of these activities early at the same time. You can do more than one thing at the same time, believe it or not. The thing is, I know there's a lot of advice out there, there's a lot of gurus, there's a lot of VCs like just focus on one thing, just get that really great. But the reality is it depends. Nuances change. And at the end of the day, in the early days, when you're really coding and building features, you're doing it in a bit of a vacuum. And you don't really know if the product you're building is going to be valuable in the market. You don't really know if it's going to be 10 times better than the competition in the market, which is why you don't want to just follow this linear launch model. You want to do a multi-threaded model. You're doing two things. You're doing a set of activities to actually code and build your product. And at the same time, you're spinning up early go-to-market motions, sales and marketing motions, to start building an audience, to start having real conversations with your ideal customers, with the people that you're building the product for. This is what happens when you do a multi-threaded launch. You code a little bit and you go into the market and start talking about your journey of building the product you're building. And you get a group of people and you ask them, hey, this is what we're building. We'd love to show you the product. We'd love to get you into it. Can you give us feedback? This gives a feedback loop into the coding so that it validates whether you're building the right thing, you're solving the right problem, if people will take time out of their day to even check out your product. As you continue to build, you continue to get more people and engaging them into the product, which makes your product even better. And over time, you create this loop where what you end up with is multiple mini launches. And by the time you coalesce around this big launch, the big bang launch, you are set up for success. You're more likely to hit product market fit. You're more likely to understand exactly who you're selling to, and you're more likely to continue to get predictable revenues. This is the power of a multi-threaded launch model. Basically, if I were to just whittle it down, the linear model does not work because it gets you stuck in this one more feature trap. What works really well is this multi-threaded model where you're continuously talking to people and using that feedback to build the right product. That's the chessboard. That's what you really need to understand about how to effectively launch. Now, let's talk about the 3 principles that really govern this, because sometimes you're so fixated on how do I just get the first customer, you kind of forget how the whole thing unfolds. So what I want to do with the 3 principles is walk you through the progression in each of the stages of these multiple mini launches that you're going to do that's actually going to accelerate your path to product market fit, to consistent revenues, and then to scaling. Principle number 1 comes in at the idea stage. This is when you're like, you know what? I really want to build a product. I have this unique insight, and I think that there should be a product. There should be a SaaS product. There should be an AI product. There should be a services plus AI product, whatever it may be. In this stage, the biggest thing that you want to be doing for this go-to-market motion is you want to first lay out your core go-to-market thesis. There's 3 core things that go into this. The first thing is who. Who specifically are you actually building this product for? A lot of times you might just be building it for yourself, but what you really want to do is make sure there are other people like you that has the same insight as you. So you really want to clarify, who am I building this for? The second thing that you want to clarify is you want to clarify what is the urgent and important problem that you're solving. Now, I get it. You want to create a product. You want to get it out there. You want to be an entrepreneur. I've been there and I am there and I value that and I respect that. You are obsessed with this. And so you're like, this is my idea. I think this is going to be huge. So you have a thesis around who it's for and what the urgent and important problem is. What you want to do is figure out if that's true for a good enough group of people. So what you want to do is get out there to your existing network of people that already trust you. And trust is important because if they don't trust you yet, you're not going to get valuable feedback. So what you really want to do is get out to this group of who and figure out how to pitch them. This is essentially called a value proposition. You want to create your value proposition sentence that pitches them on, hey, here's the problem that I'm solving, and here's the solution that I'm offering. And what you want to do is get this activity going as early as possible, pretty much at the first commit, if not before, to start really validating, hey, who is this for? Do I know 10 people in my network that are like that? Can I validate that this is an urgent, important problem for them as well? And can I pitch them on it using my value proposition to see if they would actually agree with me? Now, sometimes people will just be nice and they'll say, oh my God, this is a great idea. You should totally do it. Sometimes people say, this is a terrible idea. You should absolutely not do it. You won't really know if they're telling you the truth or not unless you ask them for some money. So one of the things you can do is you can pitch them and say, look, I'm building this product and I'd like to understand if this is a real, urgent, and important problem for you. And we think we can solve it in this way. If we were to solve it in this way, would you pay $100 to use our product and be an early tester? That's a quick way to really validate if these people are serious or they're just being really nice to you. And remember, this is within your own network. These are people that you should already know, so they should already trust you. If you go to a stranger at this stage, you're like, hey, we're gonna build this product, and it's gonna solve this problem. It's specifically for you. Here's our value prop. And you're like, I have no idea who you are, so I'll come back to me when you've built the product. So in this idea stage, the way the launch go-to-market motions come in is to go to your existing network of people, figure out if you're truly solving an urgent, important problem by highlighting it to them, and pitch them on it using your value proposition. This is what you do in the idea stage. Once you do this, ideally, you're gonna get to a point where you get to the next stage. This is the stage where you have earned your first dollar. Or really, my benchmark around this is 10 customers. Now, you could be building a $100,000 enterprise product. You could be building a $9 a month micro SaaS tool. It doesn't matter. What you're really trying to get to is, are there 10 people who already trust me in my network that are willing to buy from me by me highlighting the urgent and important problem that I'm solving and the value proposition that I'm giving them? That's the 10x solution that I'm building for. If you get to this, then you know you're cooking. If you can't get to 10 customers, then what you should do is pretty much go back to your idea and reset the thesis on what are we really building? Who's it for? Is this actually solving an urgent, important problem for people beyond just me? And can we validate it in a better way? Do not go to step number 2. Do not do any of these other things that I'm about to tell you until you really figure this out. This is super important. This is where the linear launch model goes wrong, because you don't really do this validation. You're pretty much just doing the coding in a vacuum. You're asking some friends for some advice and no one wants to be mean to you. So you don't really know until launch day if what you're building is truly valuable. I've met founders who have spent millions of dollars, spent months building the wrong thing only to realize there's no market for it. So principle number 1 is to embrace this idea stage and really focus on these 3 things. Who's it for? What's the urgent, important problem? What's my value prop? Let me go pitch the people in my network. And by the way, small thing here, if you don't have at least 10 people you can pitch in your network, chances are you are disconnected from the problem you're solving. Either you have to make friends really fast and build trust first and then validate, or you should just stop and pick a different market to solve for. There was one time for my last company, Kader, I was doing 500 startups and we were part of batch number 1. And on day number 1, I was meeting some of the other founders and I went out to lunch with a couple of founders and asked them like, hey, what are you guys working on? And they told me, oh, we're going to disrupt the wedding industry. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Like, are you guys from the wedding industry? They said, no. I'm like, are you guys married? Have you gotten married before? They're like, no. Needless to say, they completely failed. They were completely disconnected from the who. They didn't really know what they were solving for. They didn't understand the problem. So it's super important for you to really test this in the market as you are building, which is why this multi-threaded approach is super important. And guess what? As you're doing this, let's just say you get through the 10 people and you get 5 customers. Awesome, you need 5 more. Well, then you can start to go on Twitter or go on LinkedIn. You don't have to do anything fancy. You can start talking about this urgent, important problem and who you're serving and sharing your value prop and just asking people to get on a call with you so you can actually understand their needs better. But you should only do that after you've talked through your existing network and the who's that are in there. So that's principle number 1. Let's go to principle number 2, because this is when the money starts flowing in. Principle number 2 is you exit from the idea stage and you maybe gone through a couple of pivots here. Maybe you improve the product in a certain way. Maybe you address some objections. You're doing this multi-threaded launch method. You're doing a bunch of these mini launches. So now you have 10 customers and maybe you have a certain amount of revenue. This is super important. Now you're like, cool, how do I get 10 more customers? At this stage, you're really going from 0 to 1. At this stage, what you're really looking for is consistency. So let's just say you got 10 customers, and there's lots of founders I work with in my go-to-market coaching program that have earned their first dollar or gotten their first 10 customers. And they're like, TK, there's something here. Now we need to scale it out. Now we really need to figure out how we sell this on a consistent basis. So what you're really trying to do now is get to consistency. In order to get to consistency, you have to pause and figure out a few things as part of this go-to-market thread. Now, here's the thing. Whenever I meet founders that have gotten 10 customers, what we really are trying to figure out is what is the consistency? What is the pattern that we're seeing? A lot of times you did 80 different things and said 80 different things to get those 10 customers. Sometimes there's some patterns. What you really want to do at this stage, and this is where it's not really just step by step, it's really talking through it with someone smart that has been there before. What you really want to figure out is what's the pattern? What's the consistent group of people we're solving for? What is the actual message that's converting? And how do we get more of these people? That's how you get to consistency. That's the name of the game after you get that first dollar. This is super important because with this linear launch plan, you're gonna get a flat line and a bunch of people that are just tire kickers. So you're not really gonna get the data. But when you do it this way, you're gonna have a lot of data on, hey, I said this to these guys, said this to these guys, this is who they are. You can have a bunch of data. This is where an actual go-to-market strategy starts to come together. This is the exciting part. So what you really want to do is look at these 10 customers or however many that you have, and you're like, I want to get to consistency. What you want to do is now flesh out what is my ideal customer profile. Out of these 10 or however many that you have, there's a pattern around the type of customer that tends to value your product more. It could be a certain segment of the market. It could be a certain demographic. It could be a certain title. It could be a certain type of company. Any number of things could go into an ideal customer profile. When I work with founders at this stage where they've like, okay, I know there's a thing here, now we need to scale it out. We go through a 29-point process to really flesh out the ICP. Why? Because that helps us truly understand who's buying and who's not, so we can get to consistency because we can get in front of more of those people. The second piece that you really want to figure out once you have your ICP is your messaging. The value prop is basically a one sentence way to communicate what you do. What's the problem that you solve and why is your solution 10 times better? The messaging starts to flesh out all the other pieces. There are things like, what do I put on my homepage? What do I say on a cold email or on a LinkedIn post? What should my lead magnet be? How do I attract more of these people and what do I say to them to grab their attention? This is where messaging comes in. When I work with founders, we develop what I call a manifesto. A manifesto is a framework that I use to really flesh out what is it that we do, what's the transformation we bring into the market, what's the competition, why are we 10 times better, and how do we actually increase the speed from them understanding what we do to actually buying from us. All of those go into messaging, and you really want to figure that out. Once you have proper messaging, you'll know what to put on your homepage. It won't have to change over and over. You'll know what to put in your pitch deck, your ads, your posts, you name it, all those people, all those things will start to come together. Once you have these two pieces, then it's about, cool, we kind of know who our target customer is, and we know what to say to them, and we know what our solution is, and we know our competitor in the market because we have these customers. Awesome. Now we need to get this message in front of our ideal customers on a consistent basis. So the third thing you want to do is launch a Broadway show. A Broadway show is a consistent set of sales and marketing activities that you can run to bring your message to your ICP on a consistent basis. When you do that on a consistent basis, you get out of this linear trap where you get this flat line, and your chart, your growth chart, starts to look something like this. It starts to consistently increase over time. Why? Because over time, you're doing these consistent motions of sales and marketing. You're getting more and more people to understand what you do and why you're 10 times better. You're going after a specific segment of the market, and more people are coming into your product. And these launches start to get bigger and bigger, and eventually you can even go towards your big launch. Now, there's a third principle that I have. This is what comes after you get consistency. But before I go into that, this is what everyone wants. The third principle is what everyone wants. You want a truly scalable business beyond the consistency. But before I go there, let me pause here for a second. Are you starting to see the power in this? Are you starting to see the difference between a linear launch, which just sets you up for failure, potentially building a product that no one wants, or wasting months or dollars or your time on doing the wrong thing in a vacuum, versus a multi-threaded launch? Now, don't get me wrong. It's super exciting to do a big launch. Maybe you're gonna get an event space. Maybe you're gonna throw a giant party. Maybe you're gonna do a big PR release. The thing is, if you truly know that your product is valuable and you have customers and proof points and success stories, you can always do that big launch later. I go back to my ChatGPT example. Think about it. When did ChatGPT launch? You probably didn't even know. They slowly launched it. They built a huge following, and over time it just went boom. And now they do a big launch every single time they release a new model. You can do that. But the thing is, if you do this multi-threaded launch in the beginning, you go in with your big launch from a position of power. That's the power of this whole thing. No pun intended, or double entendre. It's just very powerful. If you're starting to see the power of this, can I just get a yes in the comments below? And also smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It just loves it when you do that. Also share in the comments below any aha moments you're having already, or any realizations you're having, or any questions that you have. I love hearing from you guys. Also, if you're in this stage where you're building a product and you're like, look, I want to drive growth, I want to drive scalable revenues, I want to get consistent revenues, then you should grab a copy of my 5-point SaaS growth strategy guide. It's completely free. You don't have to go anywhere right now. I'll link to it below. Let's go to principle number 3. This is where the true fun begins. Principle number 3 is scale. This is where once you reach consistency, where you're like, hey, I can consistently bring on a customer every week, or 10 customers every week, or 10 customers every day, whatever it may be, whatever your number is, you have consistency. Something cool happens. What you have is, you know exactly who you're selling to. You know exactly what to say in front of these people. As soon as you start sharing your manifesto or sharing your messaging, whether you're at an event or a LinkedIn post or an ad or a blog post or your homepage, your ICP is just nodding. They're like, oh my God, like, we need this. That's when this third point comes. This is when you start to scale, because you're like, all right, I have my initial Broadway show. It helped me really stress test my messaging, my ICP. I iterated on it and it's all working and I've got consistency. I really want to go after the entire market that I can go after. I really want to press on the gas. I want to scale. I want to go into hyper growth. This is where the third principle comes in. Now you have the building blocks of a scalable go-to-market strategy, and you've got consistency. So now you can invest. You can raise more money. You can show any VC like, hey, here's what we do. Here's our messaging. Here's our ICP. Here's what we're doing, and it's consistent. We just need to put more dollars into it, and we can scale. Or maybe you're profitable, so you can take those profits and feed it back into the machine. So here's how scale comes together. This represents your total addressable market. For any total addressable market, for any product, 3% is ready to buy now, and the rest don't really know about you, don't know about the problem, or are in some sort of journey where they're starting to discover what's going on. This is where it gets fun. Now that you know your messaging and you know your targeting, you can take out ads to target the 3% of the market that are actively researching and buying a solution. And once you have that locked down, then you can go into the rest of this market and you can start to put in a scalable Broadway show that runs ads, that runs organic, that runs events, that has the right messaging, that not only educates the people, this is up top, that don't even know they have a problem, and gets them to become a buyer as soon as possible. That's when it becomes really fun, because at this point, you are truly scaling. You're not just targeting the early adopter market, you're targeting the entire market, and you're figuring out scalable ways to reach the part of the market that's actively researching and the part of the market that you want as customers tomorrow. You can start investing in that part of the market as well. And when you do both of these, it becomes a dual flank strategy where you're capturing existing demand, you're creating demand, and you're driving scale. And that's where it gets really fun. I've worked with countless founders that started an idea and we got into consistency. A lot of founders join my go-to-market program when they have achieved some level of consistency. They're like, look, we got some customers, we know this is a thing. And they're like, how do I just get to consistency? And then I want to get to scale. And I've got a lot of founders in the go-to-market program. I've shipped out trophies to them because they hit 1 million ARR, 3 million ARR. They've added tens of millions of ARR to their revenue lines. That's where the scale comes in, and that's super fun. All right, so let's recap. When you're launching a new product, don't get stuck in the linear model. The linear model will just set you up for failure and a dead end. What you want to do is the multi-threaded model. You have one thread where you're coding and building the product, and one thread as early as possible, even at first Git commit, where you're driving the go-to-market. How do you do the go-to-market? There's 3 stages to it. The first stage is the idea stage. You're just trying to go from 0 to 1. You have an idea, you want to get to 1. In this case, you want to really flesh out who you're targeting, what the urgent important problem is, and develop your value proposition. You do these 3 things, you can go to your existing network and start to get your first 10 customers. Once you have that, you then enter into the next phase. The next phase is like, you've got something. People are paying, so you just need more. You want to get to consistency. At this point, you want to build the beginnings of a scalable go-to-market machine. You want to flesh out your ideal customer profile. You want to flesh out your messaging. Really hone in on what you need to say in front of your customers so that they are ready to buy, or they're interested in taking a meeting or starting a trial. And then you want to launch your initial Broadway show so you can test these 2 pieces and iterate on it and get better and better and get to consistency. Once you get to consistency, then it's about world domination. In order to get to world domination, you run 2 Broadway shows. The first one is to target the existing demand in the market, and the second one is to convince the rest of the market that they need your product by educating them about the problem and showing why you are 10 times better than the competition. And that's where it gets a lot of fun. Now you know how to launch your SaaS product. Don't do the linear launch. Don't be a fool. I know you're smarter than that. Do the multi-threaded launch, and the multi-threaded launch sets you up for success. And here's the thing. By the time you get to consistency, you can always do that big bang launch, but you'll show up with it with certainty, with clarity of who you're targeting. You'll have a little bit of swagger, and it's a lot of fun. So now you know the exact principles that I've learned the hard way from making all the mistakes on how to properly launch a new product. Now, if you're at this stage, you're probably thinking like, all right, how do I really get a proper go-to-market strategy together? This is why I created my 5-point SaaS growth strategy guide. It's completely free. When you grab a copy of that guide, you'll get my exact framework that I follow to build out a 1-page strategy for your SaaS business. I'll also link you to special YouTube videos across this channel. I have over 400 episodes, so link to specific ones for each aspect of defining your growth strategy. And they'll help you understand all the principles needed to really work through these 3 phases. So to grab your copy, just go to getunstoppable.com/strategy. getunstoppable.com/strategy. Also, if you got value from this video, please smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It just loves it when you do that. I would also love to hear from you. Put in the comments what your aha moment was, what you learned from this, what you were maybe doing wrong and now you're gonna fix. Commit to it in the comments. I love hearing from you. We respond to every single comment. And also, if you have a fellow founder that you're working with, if you have a team member that will get value from this video, please share this video with them. If you're part of a Slack group or a WhatsApp group or a community of other SaaS founders, please share this video with them as well. I wanna serve as many founders as possible. I wanna make sure that founders don't make this mistake when they're launching. They don't do the linear launch. They do a multi-threaded launch. They're set up for success because I want all of you to get to this world domination phase. That's what really gets me excited. Also, I drop an episode every single Sunday with actionable strategies and tactics from the trenches on how to grow your SaaS business faster. So if you haven't already, be sure to hit the subscribe button and that bell icon. You'll get notified every single time I drop an episode. And lastly, remember, everyone needs a strategy for their life and their business. When you are with us, yours is gonna be unstoppable. I'm TK, and I'll see you in the next episode or inside the 5-point SaaS growth strategy guide. Link below, or just go to getunstoppable.com/strategy. Take care, everybody.